He went for a walk around the mountain and realized there weren't any creatures living in those lands for several hundred miles. That also applied to super creatures, something that scared Hansen even more. Back in Moment Shelter, Hansen decided to bring Little Black, Big Black, and Little White with him to leave. He would rather return there at a later date than hang around twiddling his thumbs waiting for something bad to happen. The Purple Mountain was too scary, and Hansen feared he'd die if he were to remain. Hansen did not want to stay until he could learn more. He and his crew had to walk 400 miles until they laid eyes on other creatures. 10 days later, clear skies returned to Purple Mountain. He could see it from his camp. Not only that, he could smell a pleasant fragrance that had carried on the wind. When the smell grew stronger, Hansen felt the gourd in his pocket move. With surprise, Hansen took a look at it. In his hands, however, the movement stopped. Inside the gourd, the heartbeat felt faster and livelier. No longer did it feel as if Hansen was holding a gourd. Instead, it now felt like he was holding a heart. If a super creature did end up jumping out of the gourd, there was no certainty over its allegiance. Only after it emerged would it become apparent whether it was a friend or foe. Hansen waited a while as the gourd continued to beat with the rhythm of a heart, but there didn't seem to be any cracking. The Purple Mountain, meanwhile, became brighter and brighter. When the day Moment Queen calculated for the golden chest to mature rolled around, the bright light made the sky look like pure gold. It was a stunning sight. "I think the fruit is maturing. Should we check it out?" Moment Queen asked Hansen as she observed the gold light. Just as Hansen was about to speak, he saw a crane flying through the air towards Moment Shelter. "Of course, it'll be okay even if it turns out to be evil. And if there is some good loot up for grabs, I won't allow anyone else to nab it before I do." Aside from the Silver Fox and the Fairy, the other super creatures were to remain at camp awaiting Hansen's signal too. Moment Queen led the group, slowly but surely. With how little they knew of what was going on, they wanted to be as careful as possible. Along their way, flowers grew in abundance, and beneath the golden light from above, everything else appeared gold. It was difficult to discern the true, original colors of anything. The closer they got to Purple Mountain, however, the more a presence began to hang over Hansen's mind. Hansen was unsure of how many creatures had come. When the gold light was at its brightest, the origin point at Purple Mountain must have been visible thousands of miles away. The Devil Blood King. Hansen saw a group of super creatures heading towards Purple Mountain. Taking a closer look, he noticed they were the creatures owned by the Devil Blood King. The Silver Ape, the Big Dragon, and the Golem were amongst the 6 that accompanied the Devil Blood King. The Devil Blood King included, the creatures did not dare tread further than the foot of the mountain. Something frightened them and stayed their desire to ascend. Hansen counted the creatures, and with the Devil Blood King included, there were at least 20 super creatures in the area. Most of them were solo, but still, it was a scary number to think of competing with. Hansen was glad that he decided not to remain in Moment Shelter, guarding the tree. While Hansen was thinking, he suddenly heard an instrument being played at the top of the mountain. He wasn't sure what instrument it was, but it made a heavenly sound. When Hansen heard the music, he felt dizzy. Without realizing it, he began to ascend Purple Mountain. But it was only for one moment, and after quickly snapping out of his daze, he turned around from the shock to see Moment Queen ascending beside him. It wasn't only her either. All the super creatures in the area appeared to be hypnotized, walking up the mountain in a trance. Hansen quickly returned Moment Queen to the Sea of Soul. The Devil Blood King included, all the other super creatures continued to climb the mountain. The Devil Blood King woke up after taking a few steps. He looked surprised, and after noticing what had just happened, he tried to reassume control of the super creatures he had brought with him. But the super creatures paid no heed to his commands, and they merely continued on their merry way up top. Some creatures did manage to snap out of their hypnotized state, one of which included the Silver Ape. The majority of them continued walking up, however. A complicated look fell across the Devil Blood King's face, as if he was weighing whether to proceed or fall back. As he juggled his thoughts, the music from up the mountain came to a stop. The mist atop the peak spread as a life force expanded to consume the mountain. 6 golden lights lit up. Are the golden chests maturing? Hansen was shocked, unsure whether or not he should call for Wang Yuheng. This scene was entirely too creepy for him to comprehend. The creatures were awoken from their daze. Hansen didn't know which monster began roaring first, but after that roar, they all began rushing to the peak. Every creature ravenously raced towards the gold light. Each and every creature there had an insatiable appetite for the golden fruit borne by the jade gold tree. The energy that consumed the mountaintop was like a fountain, and it seemed to energize every creature that walked upon its slopes. He traveled through the mist towards Moment Shelter, a place he had come to be both fond of and familiar with. There were no visible changes, from what he could initially tell. All he could see was that the tree had grown to be about 100 feet tall. It basked in a holy presence, and the chests beamed with gold light. Hansen, seeing those 6 chests, was shocked. Before, they looked fairly ordinary. Now, they looked different. All 6 of the golden chest fruits were of different sizes, and they were all shaped differently. The combined light of the chests was so bright that looking towards them was difficult. But still, each golden chest emanated with a certain scary energy. The crane he had seen before screamed. It flew past Hansen's head and collected the golden chest that was the furthest from the ground, and then flew away with it. The big dragon and a four-winged beast quickly flew forward to stop the crane and retrieve the chest. The creatures, seeing the crane grab one of the chests to no ill repercussions, began rushing towards the tree in the hope of nabbing the rest. The shelter was in utter chaos as creatures battled for ultimate possession of the chests. The sounds of combat, the screeches and the roars, it was all deafening. There was fire, toxic mists, and thunder being cast out, all into one dangerous melting pot of anarchy. It was fortunate Moment Shelter was tough, because otherwise it would have been reduced to nothing but rubble. Should we join the battle and attempt to procure a chest for ourselves? Moment Queen asked. We should wait a little longer. Hansen was not yet ready to strike. He stared at the Devil Blood King, who had managed to acquire 2 chests and was still not satisfied. Leading his pets, he went to try and steal another. Hansen had fought him once before, but he had yet to determine what his true strength actually was. Amidst this raging battle, Hansen believed he'd be able to accurately gauge that strength through observation. After a while, Hansen smiled. He could now tell exactly how the Devil Blood King was able to close the gap and eliminate the distance separating the two like he had in their previous fight. The Devil Blood King vanished from sight, and when he reappeared, he punched a super creature away and took its chest. Hansen saw this happen many times, and he was now positive the Devil Blood King could not teleport. He traveled through shadows. The Devil Blood King had to stand in a shadow. When he was in a shadow, he could melt into the shadow and move freely within. It was as if he was traveling through another dimension. He could not get hit, nor could he be detected. He had already taken 3 chests. Because he had taken 3 gold chests, other creatures focused their attention on him now. But the silver ape was a valiant defender of its master, and it prevented anything else from getting near. I can't allow him to take everything. Hansen, seeing the Devil Blood King become so greedy, became extra happy. Hansen was not going to focus on attacking the Devil Blood King. Instead, he was going to focus on the big ape. After a bit of thinking, Hansen noticed something strange after it slew a dragon with one swipe of its claws. Its invincibility may have been overstated. Hansen noticed it was strangely protective of its ears. Whenever a heavy attack came its way, it made sure to protect its ears above all else. The ears looked like silver snails and were about the size of eggs. The silver ape used its thick arms to block Little Angel's greatsword. She had been buffed by the Steel Knight King, but even so, all her strike could leave behind was a light scratch mark. Its body was incredibly tough. As this occurred, Moment Queen teleported behind the silver ape and punched its left ear. The sound was as if a snail had just had its shell cracked, and the sound indicated she had broken his left ear. The ape shouted in pain and moved one of its hands to protect it. Hansen, in the meantime, drilled his flaming Rex spike into the silver ape's right ear. The ape thundered in pain. It grabbed the flaming Rex spike and threw Hansen away with tremendous force. After its ears were both injured, its face began to bleed. The silver color of its body seemed to wash away, and the power it once exuded began to fade. When the Devil Blood King saw Hansen assault and damage his silver ape, he became infuriated. No longer caring if the golden chests ended up in the possession of others, he ran towards Hansen with fuming rage. The Devil Blood King flashed and melded in with the shadows. When he reappeared again, he was standing behind Hansen. When he struck, the Devil Blood King's attack hit nothing. Somehow, Hansen had evaded his strike. Better learn a new trick, cause that one's getting old. Hansen picked up his flaming Rex spike and swung it down on the Devil Blood King. After several more repetitions, he was taken aback to see Hansen dodge them all. When he realized Hansen truly could track his movements, his face looked dire. The silver ape screamed just as Little Angel brought down her greatsword to hew its head from its body. Super creature Silver Blood Macaque killed. Beast soul gained. The flesh of this creature is edible, and you may harvest its Life Geno Essence. Consume its Life Geno Essence to gain 0 to 10 Super Geno points randomly. From the sides, other wild super creatures attacked and tried to maul him in a bid to take his golden chests. Moment Shelter was in a diabolical mess, and amidst the chaos, the Silver Fox thought it was a good time to depart Hansen's shoulders and chow down on the dead silver ape. While the Devil Blood King was preoccupied, Hansen took the opportunity to flee to an area that had fewer shadows. If his nemesis came after him again, things would be significantly easier. Although Hansen could dodge the attacks, one mistake was all it would take for him to be destroyed. It was better to be safe than sorry. The Devil Blood King's fury showed no sign of lessening, however. Shaking off the super creatures, he followed after Hansen through the air, screaming. The dragon, hearing its master scream in the pursuit of his most despised human, accompanied the Devil Blood King. It flew high above Hansen, forming a shadow. The Devil Blood King used this portable shadow to warp towards Hansen. To this, Hansen coldly smiled. He did not dodge. Instead, he swung his fist. His fist was like a silver sun, one that illuminated the area and forbid the approach of any shadow. The Devil Blood King could not make use of Hansen's shadow to pounce upon his foe. Spilling blood, he exploded back through the dragon's shadow as if he had been banished from its premise. Moment Queen used her teleportation-like abilities to swoop behind the Devil Blood King and smack his head. Grabbing the 3 gold chests he had possessed, she quickly took off. Despite his ruined, bloody, and disfigured head, the Devil Blood King was not done yet. He called and went after Moment Queen with the rest of his super creatures, wanting those 3 chests back more than anything. "Run!" Hansen commanded Moment Queen to escape with the goodies she had managed to retrieve. Obtaining 3 was more than he expected, and securing them was his first priority. With Moment Queen's speed, escape shouldn't have been difficult. But much to Hansen's surprise, Moment Queen was not able to escape the pursuit of the Devil Blood King and his subordinates. Moment Queen's face was consumed by a look of disdain, cursing the creatures that chased her. So, Moment Queen opened the 3 chests in her possession. A gold light burst forth, expelling a wretched energy. Hansen was shocked, and his face became gloomy. He knew something terrible was about to occur. Hansen was already suspicious regarding the Jade Gold Tree's choice of rooting itself in Moment Shelter, and he still didn't believe she was totally unaware of what the tree's existence meant. Moment Queen had been performing exceptionally well in recent times, and she had obeyed Hansen's every command. Her life was in his hands too, so he never thought to question her loyalties, but now, something was amiss. Moment Queen must have known something about the tree, and she had decided to keep Hansen in the dark. Opening a chest now, with apparent ease, was revealing. Hansen stared at Moment Queen and the 3 open chests, wanting to know what was inside them. The 3 treasures shone with a golden light, and from each chest, something appeared directly in front of Moment Queen. There was a purple short sword, a small purple hammer, and a small purple shield. Hilt and blade combined, the short sword was about 2 feet in length. The shield was around the size of an average frying pan. The head of the hammer was about the size of a fist, with a handle that was barely half a foot long. When the Devil Blood King and the rest of the super creatures saw these items, they each tried to grab a hold of them. The creature that came closest was the Black Bull, and with its 10-meter-long metallic body, it rushed towards them with unprecedented speed. Moment Queen grabbed the small hammer and drove it into the bull's head. The little hammer did not seem threatening, like a mosquito going up against an elephant. The bull paid no heed to its approach, but was quickly brought to a stop when they collided. It was like a train that was going 300 miles per hour had been brought to a sudden halt. The Black Bull stood still, and blood seeped from the area of the bull's head that Moment Queen hit. The noises came from all through the bull's body, as if all of its bones were breaking, one after another. The 10-meter-long body dropped to the ground like a crumpled sack. It was very dead. Super creatures, spirits, and humans alike were shocked to witness what had just happened. A dreadful, gripping fear had taken hold of their hearts and kept them from moving. The bull was a second-generation super creature, and it was difficult to believe that it had been one-hit killed by a hammer. Hansen and the Devil Blood King both looked shocked, and they looked upon Moment Queen with wide-open eyes as she hovered mid-air with the 3 articles of weaponry. No super creature moved in response to what had just happened, but Moment Queen did. She flew over to the giant centipede that had procured a chest for itself. Swinging the purple short sword, she sliced the monster in half, as if it was composed of tofu. The 4th golden chest was in Moment Queen's hand. Seeing things were getting out of control, Hansen decided to return Moment Queen to the Sea of Soul. But Moment Queen raised the purple shield and encompassed herself in a purple light. Hansen's control over her was revoked, and the authority of his contract with her had been nullified. Moment Queen merely smiled at Hansen and then ignored him. She opened the 4th chest, which was a little bigger. A set of armor was inside, which Moment Queen immediately donned. As Moment Queen's smile creeped Hansen out and soured his disposition, Hansen turned around with a desire to run. He no longer wanted treasure. He only wanted to run as far away as he possibly could. Moment Queen was able to use the weapons inside the chest to destroy their contract. She had become so powerful, she could slay super creatures as easily as one could kill livestock. Hansen was feeling bitter over the circumstances, but no one could ever expect that a claimed spirit would have the potential to destroy their contract. It was the first he had heard of such a thing happening, and it could have quite possibly been the first occurrence in history. No one thought that claimed spirits could rebel. And now it wasn't only Hansen running off. All the super creatures had snapped from their daze and chosen to flee, the Devil Blood King included. Not long after, Hansen had escaped the Purple Mountain, and far off, in the distance, the painful cries of super creatures could be heard. Having taken all the golden chests, Hansen pictured Moment Queen mercilessly slaying each and every super creature without reprieve. With Moment Queen's speed, she was undoubtedly the strongest being in Second God's Sanctuary. Now that she had overpowered armor and weaponry, a super creature's survival in her shadow was entirely dependent on the mercy she was willing to offer. Currently, there had been none. Hansen heard a voice cry out. He could tell it was from the Devil Blood King, and Hansen figured he must have been slain. Hansen's determination to escape heightened, and he decided to flee even harder. He couldn't respawn like the Devil Blood King could, so all he could hope to do was run. But the Devil Blood King's death cry was the last thing Hansen could hear. After that, only the silence sung. The profound quietness brought Hansen discomfort, and when he turned around to take a look, he jumped. Moment Queen was standing behind him silently. She was staring at Hansen intensely, with eyes that were as cold as ice. Aside from the purple armor she was now clad in, she was also garbed in a pair of purple metallic wings and a purple crown. She looked like some ancient queen, hailing from some mythical hellscape of a different world. My queen, congratulations. It brings great joy to my heart, seeing you obtain all this treasure for yourself, Hansen said, as his mind raced for a solution on how he might escape his predicament. But no reasonable idea came to him, and fleeing actually seemed impossible. The items she had received from the golden chests were too powerful, and Hansen's gear would be no match. You had fun bossing me around, didn't you? Moment Queen smiled at Hansen. The smile was so beautiful and radiant, it seemed genuine enough to thaw the icy image she was previously conveying. But to Hansen, personally, it still felt as if he had a bucket of icy water thrown on his heart. Hansen turned around and started running. Moment Queen flapped her wings and, appearing behind him, grabbed his back. The silver fox was furious, and it spat out silver lightning. But the lightning was immediately cancelled by the purple aura that encompassed her body. It dealt no damage. She didn't even react to its touch. Uninhibited, Moment Queen grabbed Hansen and the silver fox. Not willing to give up entirely, they both cast their best attacks. Hansen aimed for her belly, while the silver fox aimed for her head. Hansen's heart beat faster and faster as his kidneys kicked into overdrive to produce energy. His body was charged with the element of thunder, and the tolling of a bell chimed. The fusion of thunder and sonic forces was driven directly into her belly. The silver fox exerted more effort than ever before, focusing all it could to defend its master. It channeled its energy into an explosive electric charge and fired a lightning thunderbolt towards her face. The combination of these two strikes would have been fatal for most, but to Moment Queen, they were little more than a stiff wind. Better try a new trick, because that one's getting old. That's what you would say, isn't it? Now, simmer down and cease wasting my time. Pestering me further will only invite a sooner death. I have no ardent desire to kill you, not yet. Still, it would be ill-advised for you to test my patience. A moment later, Hansen and the silver fox were thrown to the ground. Such was the force they could do little but writhe around in agony afterwards, groaning. Trying to subdue the savage aching of his bones, Hansen looked around. Moment Queen had brought them back to Moment Shelter, directly beneath the boughs of the jade gold tree. Never had Hansen seen the silver fox, in the time since he witnessed its birth, be so angry. It wanted nothing more than to lash out and attack Moment Queen, despite the futility of such an action. Fortunately, Hansen was able to keep it from doing so. They knew they were unable to compete with Moment Queen, and attacking her would only incite her wrath and lead to a quicker death. If she didn't want to kill them just yet, there was a chance they could make it out of their predicament alive. Hansen looked at Moment Queen, who was standing under the tree. She looked upon it in admiration, but she didn't speak or do anything. What thoughts graced her mind, Hansen couldn't tell. Suddenly, Moment Queen turned around. The unpredictability gave Hansen and the silver fox a jump scare, and they couldn't help but take a step back. There is no need to fear me. I do not plan on killing you yet. You had me as your puppet for a time, so your death will be slow, Moment Queen said. Following my commands was a decision you made. Aside from asking a favor from time to time, I didn't mistreat you. You deserve to die the moment you approached the gates of my shelter. You deserve to die the moment you asserted yourself as my master. Calm down. With the treasure you have, the contract has already been destroyed. Hansen went on. I have seen a lot today, and I didn't expect a tree could grow armaments such as those you obtained. How did you learn what it took to grow such sacred items? Moment Queen's face looked both mocking and scornful. She looked back to the jade gold tree and continued her dialogue. Ignorant fool. They aren't sacred items, they are genoseeds. I brought them here from my time in Third God Sanctuary. Do you really think something of such power exists here, in this place? Hansen was frozen. He had heard about genoseeds before. It was something Ji Yanran and Annie had spoken of. But there was no way for them to ever appear in Second God Sanctuary, so this possibility never crossed Hansen's mind. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.